Ok.
Beh, quindi benvenuti a Vapore.
Ah, così facciamo l'inizio.
Sì, no.
Vabbè, benvenuti. Sì.
Benvenuti.
Questa è la prima puntata. E la prima puntata iniziamo con un ospite neanche svedese, ma in realtà perché abitiamo in Svezia noi. L'ospite parla italiano, ma faremo l'intervista in inglese. So let's start in English. Welcome to Edith.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And why we choose Edith for the first episode? First, because she said yes. And she's a food expert, anthropologist, and social anthropologist, and much more. And I don't know if you want to introduce yourself or you want.
Whatever you want.
Yeah.
If you want to introduce yourself, you can.
Yeah. I mean, it's yeah.
Name, age,
status.
How would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, yes, my name is Edith Salminen, and I come from Finland. And I work with food in many ways. And it's always fun for me to choose which aspect of my work I should introduce. But like you have already noticed that I'm defined in many ways if you Google me, and it's because what I do is all encompassing. I have my fingers everywhere a little bit when it comes to food, because food is everywhere. But yes, my study background is in European studies and social anthropology of food. So I'm interested in the link between people, food, and the world we live in, and exactly everything that happens between these three entities. Yeah.
Good. So we studied Edith a little bit, and we made a list of questions.
But can I start first with lighter questions? So we talk about food all the time, maybe on a philosophical way, but I would start. What did you eat yesterday, if I can ask?
Yeah, I love that question. That's my favorite way to start, always to ask. I have to think. Well, yesterday evening, we did some sort of bastardized version of tacos.
Okay.
It was not Friday, as usually Swedish people eat tacos on Friday. I don't know if you know this.
Yeah.
Fredagsmys. No, I'm not Swedish either, but my partner is Swedish. But yeah, yesterday we were both very tired, and we have a child who is almost 3. And so we asked her, what does she want? And she knows maybe 5 dishes. So she goes, tacos. And we're like, oh, okay. So we just kind of made tacos with whatever was in the fridge. Yeah.
Okay.
What did you have?
What did you have?
I had pizza, so just to fill up the stereotype.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was
Was
Saturday.
it homemade?
I tried to make it homemade, but this time no, I was at the restaurant.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah. What did you have?
I made a pork fillet with smashed potatoes, and then we had apple mustard.
Very German.
Yeah.
Or like Danish, even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
North Italian, maybe.
Good.
And cabbage. Okay. The first real question, serious question, is like, what does it mean to be a food writer for you?
Well, for me, it can mean many things, but I think for me, the most important thing is that you somehow, in your writing, that you present an understanding of food as you see it in the world. But for many other people, it is about writing about restaurants or chefs. And for me, that's food writing and food critiquing or reviewing are very different things. And I kind of want to emphasize on that aspect, that food writing is not about
reviewing a restaurant.
Yeah. It's a whole different branch of writing, I would say. And it can be fictional or non-fictional.
Yeah.
But usually it is non-fictional, and it's about food in the world for me.
So what was the last topic you wrote about?
Ooh, it's been a while since I did proper food writing. There was a part of my, I'm not that old, so my career is not immensely long, but a while ago I used to do a lot more. I can't recall exactly, but there's one text that I remember very vividly, and it was about if we all live in a new Nordic food world.
Okay.
It was a commissioned work for the Nordic Council of Ministers, and they asked me, from my perspective as a Finn living in Copenhagen at the time, like how I as an individual living in this realm of New Nordic, how I felt, if I feel that I'm living the New Nordic food or no. So it was kind of
what does it mean, Nordic food?
Yeah, what does it mean? It well, the New Nordic food started because in this part of the world we didn't have a really strong identity connected to food like you do in Italy or in France or in Spain. You came to the Nordics in the early 2000s and everyone tried to do French or Italian or some sort of fusion of something.
When you don't have what to do,
you
try to
Or what was our own was like just at homes, and not even in homes. It was kind of forgotten.
Okay.
And then in 2004, a person called Klaus Meyer, he's a chef by training, but he's a food entrepreneur. He's like a mega mind when it comes to food. He's a visionary. And he put together 12 chefs from all the Nordic countries. And they basically wrote down a manifesto. What is the new Nordic food? So not what we used to eat, like, once upon a time, not to be like all sort of nostalgic and traditional, but which potential do we have?
Yeah.
We don't have to be Italian or French or something else. We can be something of our own.
It's like what we eat today.
Yeah. And how do we see ourselves? Like, how do we become, how does the Nordic region become the next gastronomical hotspot and destination? So that's where it started. And then, long story short, also the Nordic Council of Ministers adopted it and made like a gastro diplomacy project out of it, but we can come to that later. Yeah. So it's all like, in European studies, you talk about invented identities, or constructed identities. In a way, it is. In a way, it's that.
How to give a place a
meaning.
Yeah, meaning, a root, without having a cultural background.
Yeah, or not having that sort of. There was no such thing as a common Nordic gastronomy before.
Yeah.
We would all have our meatballs and our, whatever dishes, and we did them in different ways in different countries, but we never like saw ourselves like kind of connecting. Like in Italy, of course, like all the regions have very different
traditions.
Yeah, their own. But then in Italy, you have like all-encompassing things that all Italians can connect to. Yeah.
And but maybe it helps. Maybe the Nordic is a vague, or not. It's a vast concept. Italy,
it was vague as well.
It's vague, but I would say more vast. Like
yes, sure.
Few people and a lot of land. In a sense, like the connection is a bit different. In Italy, we're always small towns and a small or a big country. A lot of people that were well connected to each other. So maybe that's if I have to answer it.
No, but it's interesting to hear your perspective.
But it's also about like having an intense history.
Yeah.
It's like in 100 years it happened more.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like nowadays it's happening almost everywhere. So more than you get to like copy other countries, mix, and this creates maybe your own identity. Maybe.
But invented communities, invented food community sounds okay.
Yeah.
Good research.
So why food is so important for you?
Because it's everything and everywhere and all the time. We wouldn't exist without food. Yeah, that's the easiest answer.
Yeah.
Really.
But yeah, so I think if I asked a lot of Swedish people this question, they would answer for necessity.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yes.
is it necessity, or is it, since we have the necessity to eat, then or at least maybe it's what I see.
Mm-hmm.
We have the necessity to eat, so let's eat something that it's healthy, that it's good, that it's researched a little bit.
It's also about passion, or like if you know, then I would say that
how to transform the necessity,
so they don't.
Yeah, it's but connecting back to what I was saying, that if food has, historically speaking, this part of the world has been about necessity.
Yeah.
It's a rough area. It's rough when it comes to climate, geography. In certain times, in certain places, is very challenging when it comes to agriculture. Then, of course, like Skåne, where we are right now, it's the pantry of Sweden, and all the agriculture happens here. But if we talk about the Nordic countries in general, it's cold. It's people don't have that. Our culture is not about getting together around the table, or if it is, it's the time of day when it's dark, you're tired, and you sit and you like, and you go to bed, and hence the necessity.
Yeah.
And because we don't have olive oil and tomatoes and delicious things like that, we would have potato and root vegetables, and you boil them and they boom, and maybe not even salt.
Yeah.
The flavors are not that. The sun and the land creates flavor.
Yeah.
And sun is
apparently
not existent.
Right.
Yes, but and and then we also have this connected to, this is a very interesting and important aspect of it, the pleasure aspect.
Yeah.
Nordic region, most Nordic regions are Lutheran.
Yeah.
And its pleasure is something bad. Pleasure is not something that you should seek in life. There's no hedonism. And you have to be a hard worker. You have to keep your head down, and that's it.
Yeah.
And you do what you gotta do. Maybe I'm speaking above all about Finland, but historically this was everywhere. And to take a bite of something and even make a sound or enjoy, be like that's like that's the devil.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is the case, but this is analysis that you can make. The enjoyment. People don't enjoy.
When you think about joy and food, what is the first thing that's come up?
I mean, as long as I can remember, food has brought me pleasure. To taste something, to put something that is very tasty in my mouth and to eat it, it's been, sometimes I wake up in the morning and the first thing I think about is my meal. And if I would go to school, I was lucky, my school in Finland where I went to had a really great chef at the time. And I remember, 9 o'clock in the morning, we would have some classes, and I would already think and anticipate, like, oh, it's gonna be so good, and the smells, and I thought that I was somehow like something was wrong with me, because not everyone in my friends, they were like, food, disgusting.
So you are weird to be.
Yes. No, but then when I lived in Italy, I felt like, I'm like everyone else. This is perfect.
I think you are able to understand a lot more our background because you lived in Italy. Can you tell us a little bit? What did you do in Italy?
Well, the first time I lived in Italy was because of love, obviously.
For tomatoes.
The tomatoes and the pasta and the pizza. No, but okay. So that's before the love part. I was 15 years old when I went on my first alone holiday. I flew by myself from Helsinki to Rome. I had a childhood friend from when I was a child. We all lived in Vietnam. Long story. It's like many parts. But her family had moved. She's French, and she had moved to Rome because her father was the main chef at the French embassy in Rome. So fantastic.
Yeah.
So I got an invitation for the 14 juillet, 14th of July, which is the French national. And they said, would I like to come there for a week and celebrate this? And, you know, my first thought was food. You know, my friend, I haven't seen her for 10 years, like, no, I'm exaggerating, but really, it was like that. And then I come to Rome, and all I can think about is all the amazing food that I will eat. Like, for me, I remember I had my first arancini, and it was mind-blowing. It's like freaking genius. It's like a risotto in a bowl. I mean, it's like delicious.
Fried.
Yes, fried. And then like pizza al taglio, everything. Like, it was just, food was everywhere, and I couldn't understand. And at the same time, I felt like this is how it should be, right? Mm-hmm. You know, and then, you know, let's not even talk about the French party at the embassy. Like, it was like camembert everywhere. And it's, So it was amazing, and I left my heart there, really. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, I don't know, maybe it's the food or why, but then when I was a young woman in my 20s, and the university world and Erasmus was on the peak, you know, in 2005, 6, all Italians came to the Nordics, and it was usually men, and it was always like this. I was a tutor, and I just met these men who, for me, represented the food, you know, and the passion and the love, and it was like, sometimes I asked myself, was I really interested in a person? I just wanted. It's like I wanted the ticket to the country, you know. I'm a bit exaggerating, but it really was like that. And so one of them brought me to Piemonte eventually.
Italian men, be aware of this.
Or use it. I don't know.
Or use it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so Piemonte.
Piemonte was then the place after Rome and Piemonte. Okay. But Piemonte.
What you would like to copy from Italy, for example?
If there is something.
If there is something. That
yes, there's many things that I don't want to copy, but there's many things that I would like to.
We're gonna go through also.
Yes, yes.
Don't list.
Yes.
Don't do.
Well, for me, it's everything that happens around the meal, because the meal, of course, it's about feeding a family and being together. But for me, the meal is, when you think about the education of food and what happens, you know, a small child who is, I don't know, not even 1 year old, and even if they're not even eating the food yet because they're eating breast milk, but just to be around that setting physically, to have that happen, at least twice a day, every day, where, you know, you put the tablecloth, the plastic one, you know, what is it called again? The table. Tovaglia. Yes. It was one of the first words when I didn't speak a word of Italian. Tovaglia. Edith, vai a mettere la tovaglia. Okay. And it's like this with like flowers and some fruits, and it's completely crazy. And then, you know, comes the plates, and then you have the breadsticks, and it's a ceremony. Every single, I don't know if you think about it, but every single day, twice a day, there's a ceremony prepared. Yeah. And everyone is more or less involved. Of course, the person who cooks is, you know, the protagonist.
You see it as like something.
For me, it was so special.
Okay.
It's not something that was normal, you know. I feel that at home in my family, we did cherish the meal together, but it was not every time. Sometimes it was in front of a TV. Sometimes I was in my own room eating. You know.
But I think it's something that we give for granted. At least.
Absolutely, you do.
It's normal for us to sit, at least growing up, to sit in a room and eat all together. But when you go abroad, or at least in other countries, it doesn't.
See, these exchange students that I met when they came to Finland, one of the first things that made them depressed and homesick was that. Because they realized that it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
They thought it was strange. Like, why? They were like, why don't you sit down together?
It's in Italian there is a word. It's called convivio.
Convivio, yeah.
That means living together.
Yes.
Convivere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't do convivere. we do separate.
I don't know. Maybe you do it, but I would say it's different, the attitude.
It's at a distance.
Yeah.
I can be with you,
but
don't get into my business.
Exactly.
Like a building, let's say. Like in Sweden, I don't know if this exists in Italy actually, this bostadsförening, like housing associations.
Yeah.
So everyone, like, there's a building and let's say there's, I don't know, 30 apartments. Everyone owns their own apartment, but they still coexist because they have the housing board and they are in charge of the house actually, and depend on how much they engage. But that's a way of convivere for us. You have a physical wall that separates, and you can choose whether you go out. It's mentally and physically.
Yeah.
And when you choose, like, okay, we can be together and we can take care of this because of a practical reason, then we can coexist.
Yeah.
But in Italy, it's like emotional. It's almost like I felt like people are unwell if they're alone. Yeah. And there's like instantly something is wrong if someone is alone.
Okay. And how do you deal with it in Sweden?
With this other type of. Yeah. I mean, I didn't feel well when I came home from it. I lived first in France for 2 years, and then I moved to Italy. So it was like a longer period in these type of countries where the conviviality is by default. And it was really strange, to be honest. I didn't feel like I knew how to behave with other people, and just the fact to say hello. Already there you get a little bit of connection. You know, it doesn't matter if you like the person, if it's a man or a woman, whatever. You know, as a woman, I would give the kisses, and that's nice. You know, but it's also nice to not have to do it sometimes. But then you get used to it, to be honest. Yeah. So
why you choose to come in Sweden? Because you travel a lot, and then you end up in Malmö.
I usually say that I never choose to be here. I chose after a long time away from the Nordics. I lived away from the Nordics my entire beginning of my adult life, basically, and did all my studies abroad. And at a certain point, it was because of University of Gastronomic Sciences in Piemonte, where it was very much about connecting to the roots, connecting to the land, connecting to where you're from. And I saw the pride in Italy. And then I felt like I want to connect. And I literally looked at the map and I was like, okay, where can I start? I cannot go to Finland because that would be going from one extreme to the other. Yeah. I can't do that. Yeah. So Sweden, not a choice for me. I talk about that later. And I was like, oh yeah, Copenhagen, fantastic. Yeah. Very international. Gastronomy is like bubbling, and it was on the peak. It was 2014. Yeah. So it couldn't be better. So I was like, okay, buy a ticket, go there. I do whatever it takes for me to build a home there. And I succeeded for 3 years, and it was fantastic. But then certain things led to me being homeless in Copenhagen. Okay. And at the time, apartment rents were crazy. Yeah. So if you was outside of some reason you are without a home, it was almost impossible to find a place. And I lived on friends' couches, and it started to get pretty shitty. And my dad came to visit, and I had rented an Airbnb, and to fake that it's my home. And after 2 days, he's like, okay, my daughter, when are you can say this is not your home? And I'm like, and I'm homeless, and he's like, just go to Malmö. It's super cheap. You can find an apartment like this. You can just go there and lick your wounds and then come back. It's also 30 minutes. Yeah, exactly. So I was like, okay, fine. And I put an ad, and in like 15 minutes, no kidding, I got 3 phone calls. People like, oh, do you want this great apartment for the fraction of money? Basically, she's branding Malmö like home of the homeless. Exactly. No, but it was really out of necessity that I came here. I never felt like, ooh, I want to explore this country, and I wasn't ever supposed to stay here. That's the funny part. But it was like food and everything that happened around it that then like drew me here. Yeah. Well, Malmö can be a start. Yes, or first and the last. But like Malmö has this when we if you want to use the stereotype of the Swedish culture, Malmö is like a city of
migrants. There are a lot of
workers.
It's cheaper than Stockholm and Gothenburg.
Yes.
Yeah. But it's still big city.
Yeah, big small city.
It's still a big small city. Yeah, there's a lot of students, and it's related to Lund and
Yes.
Copenhagen. And
Yeah, I think it's a bit in maybe well-connected area.
It's quite exceptional in many ways. Like it's the black sheep of all the Swedish cities. For me. Yeah.
And it's also the biggest metropolitan area of Scandinavia.
Yeah, we
Like
connected Copenhagen.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think
AKA the Öresund region.
Yeah, or Greater Copenhagen,
Yeah,
which is I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah. I don't care so much about
No, the name.
No, it's the facts of it. Yes.
Yeah, but in the end, it is
Yeah.
extension of Copenhagen.
Yes.
I would see that.
Yes.
So let's go back to things to copy from Italy. And
Yes.
we understood it's the way to enjoy company and food
Yes.
at the same time. But the things you would like, things you don't want to copy from Italy. It's because like the idea of this YouTube channel was also to share best practices and like
Not so
what
best.
we like and what we don't like and what we should copy in Italy and what we shouldn't. So yeah.
Yeah. I really much appreciate BankID.
Yeah.
For those who don't know,
Yeah.
it's an app that basically gives you access to all authorities, and you can do all your affairs, governmental affairs with this app just by putting a code, and it's done. In Italy,
it's like a digital identity.
Yes, digital identity. Yes. In Italy, I don't know if there's something similar now, but when I used to live in Italy, it was so crazy that sometimes when you had to go and open a bank account or something, the queuing and the waiting and the stamps and the papers and the attitude and the closing hours for lunch, and I was like, how does this country function? You know?
I would like to defend this because when you are in queue, you socialize with people.
Yeah.
And
But that's when you crack the
I'm a
code.
little bit joking, but it's like you enjoy people because they talk to you. But if you're in a queue in Sweden, no one talks.
No.
Right? Okay.
And it's boring.
So,
yes.
Queues in Italy, they're not really queues.
I have to be a lawyer now. I have to defend my.
But I have to say that one of my dearest Italian friends met her future husband in the queue.
Exactly. You
Yes.
see?
Yes. In a small city called Castelfidardo.
Yeah.
In,
It's near Parma.
Yes. And they're very happy married. Yes. Anyway, so yes, of course. But for me as a Finn, I'm not going to talk to a stranger in a queue, or I might, but in general. And I was there so stressed, and I thought half an hour is fine. And then I was completely late, and this happened all the time. And then I understood that, okay, I need to chill. I need to get into a whole different mentality. I go and I maybe have something to eat with me, and I'm ready to sit, I'm ready to socialize. And when you know this, when you have, for me, I call these like cultural keys.
Yeah.
When you use the right key, it opens possibility. But if you have the wrong key, it just makes you just angry and frustrated, and it doesn't work.
It's the power to adapt.
Yes, it's the power to adapt. Absolutely. But living in today's world where time is so precious. But then again, it's like in Italy, time is different. That's the thing.
But, I would like again try to defend this. I know a lot of people are gonna hate me, but since I moved to Sweden, I'm a lot more stressed.
Yes.
Everything has to be more like performative.
Yes.
And BankID is nice, but I have the feeling that I don't take my time to enjoy things in life, and I don't know what exactly. I still have to I would analyze the queue in Italy like an anthropological place. Then maybe I'm a little bit romantic now, but it's
also very common when you've been away for long from your country.
Yeah,
I
I appreciate more also.
I think
things that I couldn't before, probably.
I think there's a different pace usually, and
except for in traffic. Italian shopping.
Yes.
Never.
But-
Jesus Christ, how do people
Now-
even live? Half of the people are high when they drive their cars. Like, this is shocking to me.
Yeah. But I think one has to find different places for different things you do.
Yes.
I hate waiting in the queue at the post office because I have to get a letter that I couldn't get by email because some weird reason.
Yeah.
But also when for example, I'm at a restaurant. I was in a restaurant in Copenhagen and I wanted to eat inside and they had no chairs. And I only had a table with a mirror in front. I felt like, okay, but if I want to enjoy a meal, I want to sit and eat something.
Yourself.
Yeah, you watch yourself in the mirror while eating. I don't know. So
very Japanese.
yeah. So there's a bit of a like you have to choose the different places, I would say. And it's in Sweden everything has to
Yeah, I do. I think that you lose the fine little details, the small average things that can make your day. You lose it in the fast. I don't like that part of the Nordic countries at all. But I like the efficiency. And for me, if you could combine the slowness of Italy and the efficiency of the Nordics. But those two are they're like magnets that don't want to. They're like opposite poles.
No, but I would say people not me, but we are able to understand what we mean. Sometimes I talk to people and they don't really get it, and maybe this is being European means to share this kind of
for me it's
skills.
Yes, and it's about those keys really because. In Europe, I've lived in 4 countries, but then visited a lot of them. And I feel like when you have the sensibility to understand that, there is no such thing as a common European identity. There might be when you're away from Europe, say you're in the States or something, then you start seeing similarities. But when you are in Europe, every place has its own key sometimes. And if you don't open with that key, then it's like you're traveling with some blindfold. You just physically you're clashing. You're physically, mentally, culturally, emotionally, psychologically clashing because you're like, oh, we're supposed to be so similar, but we're not.
So and about this, I would like to go back to food. It's like when you are for example, in Paris, and some people I'm talking about Italians. They want to eat pasta or pizza in Paris.
Why
and
is
then
that?
They complain, or the espresso is shitty.
Why do you think that?
I don't want to say why because
I think,
but it's like if you, it's a little bit like they are not able to understand that they pretend from tourists coming in Italy to eat Italian stuff and enjoying the Italian stuff. But then they go abroad, they don't want to behave in the same way they expect from the same tourists.
I have a hypothesis for why.
And
it's because countries like Italy, where you have a very strong food identity and food culture, everyone is what your food is and you're proud of it because it's tasty and all the world loves it. The downside of it is that it makes you extremely rigid. It makes you so unopen to other things because it's you hear the narrative of your food culture is that everyone loves it, and so then you, in your subconscious and also,
and what
consciously.
And what if it's, I think, I've been thinking now out loud, what if it's the sense of inferiority? You want to say, you go out, you leave your country for an holiday, and then you arrive in France and you see oh wow, it's good. And then to feel better because you feel
I'm not the only good person.
No, it's most of the time the Italians are complaining about Italy. And so then you go, you come in Sweden and you see the public transportation is good. And then, for real, I don't know, the bank ID, it's good, the digital identity is good. And then you have to find something to save a little bit yourself, and then you end up to talk about food because it's the best skill maybe we have.
Maybe, yeah. That's a good point. But it's, I think that the more you are born into a set structure, you become not so flexible. Because the good thing about the Nordic countries and when it comes to food identity is that since we are basically, we don't have a very strong sense of what is food. And we are more open to explore. And that's why we, in Sweden especially, you see this. You get these trends like, oh, now it's the poke bowl, now it's this, and now it's that. And then slowly you make it a Swedish version. And you create this sort of identity of bastardized foods.
Debbie's advocate now. I don't. It's difficult to generalize, but the attitude towards food in Italy, it's like people, they really want to try the authentic dish every time. They go for like, I want to eat sushi. What's the best?
So when they go somewhere.
Or, so maybe it's a paradox because I see in Sweden I didn't find this. Sometimes they want to have the pizza with kebab, the pizza with ox fillet and mass sauce.
Yes.
So yes, Swedes are more open, but they are not so rigid. And sometimes so I'm not so sure that there are very picky Swedes that they want to drink I don't know, best Barolo with this and they know. But maybe we are talking about an elite.
Okay.
So maybe the elite in Italy and the elite in Sweden, they know, they have the knowledge.
Yes.
But then the mass, it's a little bit more similar, and they suffer because like sense of inferiority, so they pump food, and the other ones, they just want to eat burgers in Paris or in Rome. And they like, some people are like expecting to find pizza with kebab in Naples, for example, or with ananas, and like, why they are so pissed there. People in Naples, if you order a pizza with ananas.
But it's also, there's something when you go into social anthropology of food. There's the classic theory of the omnivore's dilemma. Have you heard it? Yeah.
So, Michael.
Yes. But it's this it's like where a neophobia and neophilia meets, and we are constantly in this. Like we, as humans, because we're omnivores, because we, in theory, we can eat everything. We don't have our teeth or whatever. Our digestion is not for one type of diet, so we have potentially everything available, from the most beautiful pieces of meat to like insects and everything. But then we have also neophobia, which is which you're afraid to try new things because it's potentially lethal. Because in this scape, if you put like omnivore's diet, there's also things that might kill you, like certain mushrooms or certain berries, right? So you have to constantly fight. You're like, oh, something new. Oh, I want this. Oh, sorry. Don't touch that. Sorry. Like, oh, new. What is this? Oh, I haven't seen this before. And then you're urging to try it. Yeah. But then there's this thing that stops you from doing it. And that's also, speaking of the pineapple pizza in Naples, because that's in most Nordic countries, we've learned that's the 90s, pizza Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yes. And we've grown up with it. There's a sense of comfort. And of some reason, most have learned to like it.
Yeah.
Because it was that neophobia. It's something new on a pizza that shouldn't be there. That's exciting. And then it's like, oh, this is tasty. And then you go to Naples where, there's one way of doing pizza, basta, like that. There's strict, there's like laws even almost. Yeah. And then they are like, oh, don't you have neophilia? Don't you want to try new things? But it's like, no, because that's how it's decided there. And then they clash. So there are certain, it just works like that.
Yeah. But speaking about this, like, what's the worst thing you would like? Speaking about food in Italy, since what do you think? What was the biggest issue for you with Italian food? Have you found
something negative?
Yeah.
Well, this is a Piemontese
for example,
example.
the rigidity.
Yes.
Okay.
Something. So in Piemonte, we're not talking about some trendy restaurants, you know. We're not talking about those exceptions. We're talking about the most restaurants. I could go to a restaurant in completely the opposite part geographically in Piemonte, and there would be almost exactly the same menu. You have the antipasti that is carne crudo, salsiccia di bra, vitello tonnato, pasta. And sometimes, let's add some capers, exciting, you know, or let's make the tonnato with a little bit of yolk, so it's a bit yellow. And then, you know, you have the primi, and then it's like plin with something, and it's tajarin with ragu, and then comes the secondi, and it's every time the same menu. It doesn't it changes a little bit with seasons, but even there, for me, it was this, I couldn't understand this connection, because when I go to the market where people buy their groceries, its seasonality is so obvious. There's beautiful vegetables depending on which season, and it always reflects the season. But then you come to a restaurant or trattoria, not
this is I think
why? It's like there's only one way of eating in the restaurant.
I'm gonna try to defend. I understand what you mean. It's when I read menus of Michelin restaurants, they dare more, and then there are this kind of restaurants. They are probably also they offer a menu that is quality and tradition together. So it's what for sure saves Italians from going to fast foods, because then of course it's boring after a while. Like if I have to eat the traditional food of my city every day, I'm no.
But think of it as a tourist, you know, or someone who's on a vacation. You go to Piemonte for a week, and you don't have a kitchen at home because you're living in a hotel, right? So you can't even if you go to the market, you can buy some vegetables and you make a little salad or something. But you go to a trattoria, because and again, we're not talking at all about those Michelin, because those are, you know, you eat there maybe once in 5 years, and it's an experience rather than a meal. But the trattoria is where people eat. And it's, you know, and it's a bit a surprise, you know. You're like, oh, I go to this restaurant and then this restaurant and then this, and what is happening here? But it's also, I speak about this with Italians, and they also there's a friend of mine, he was explaining to my partner, who is Swedish, and was the first time in Piemonte, and he is a chef, and he's asking my friend, and my friend with his lovely Italian accent, it's just another vitello tonnato. And for me, that it just became this, it's just another vitello tonnato.
I think it's the answer though is for me, it's not really a problem, at least in my perspective, because I feel like if I go to a trattoria, I go for the sentimental feeling of it. When I eat that dish, I remember, maybe my childhood, or maybe when I was a kid, blah blah blah. So I think then maybe you don't go to a trattoria every day, so it might be a problem that for
of course
tourist.
But
or maybe it's also because I live abroad now, so if I went to a trattoria every day, I would want to go to a trattoria every day now.
But for example, the lunch culture, right? Because in Italy you go home to have lunch mostly, or you go.
Did it, but,
no.
I mean,
that's my experience of most. I mean, of course, you have the more business people who work in offices and don't commute. But if you live close to your workplace, you would go home, and then you have whatever you want, right? But in Sweden, for example, there's a lot of people eat out for lunch on a daily basis, and the lunch is it's very different, the lunch, and you know, people get really fussy if there's the same thing
every day.
You know,
they would never. People are more spoiled, I would say, because they also want the coffee included in the price, the biscuit. There is this for 120 pounds is.
That's a whole other new topic.
But we have to talk about.
We have to talk about that. But something that I would like to that you said that is something that I have been thinking about is the sentiment, the feeling, and you know, to go to eat somewhere sometimes I ask myself this question: do I go because of the food or the feeling? And what is a good place, you know? And for me, it's really like, it's a combination of the two. Like you can go to a place where the food is absolutely amazing, but there's no feeling. Maybe there's the mirror, or whatever. Exactly. And you don't. It's like the dish cannot reach its full potential, even though flavor-wise and visually and aesthetically, it's perfect. Or you have a place which is amazing in the ambiance and it has a great feeling, but the food is shit.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, and this happened just last weekend. I was like, I want to go to a place. I want to go to a place where the food is, you know, I don't want to say perfect. That's such a shit word, but where the food is well made, truly, and where there's a good feeling. And all of a sudden, I become the pickiest person. I don't want to go anywhere. I'm like, okay, I will stay at home then.
Yeah.
You know, my partner is a chef. I'm a really good cook. We can create the ambiance.
Yes. Yeah. We do the same.
So, and that for me is a problem.
Yeah, it is.
And this is a big problem, especially here in Sweden.
And why do you think it's like that?
Because sometimes, and this is very my personal opinion, and not based on any real academic research or anything. I just feel that in Sweden, sometimes maybe food and restaurants has become too focused on the appearance and the trend and the Instagram and the following. Yes, and for me, you can cook almost anything, whether it's like trippa, pig's ear, or the filet de bœuf. It doesn't matter really, but if you cook it with love and heart, if you put your best intentions, then, you know, sometimes one person cooks better than the other, of course, but it has to be with love. And I don't know, I just feel that sometimes when you can really taste the lack of love here. It's just like, there are people who may be technically very, very skilled cooks and chefs, and it's flawless from that perspective, but they're just doing it because, you know, they wanted to be on Instagram and go viral or something like that.
It has to look good, and it's not made with.
And it's also like, of course, a restaurant. You know, this is also a big topic. A restaurant, of course, should be a business. There's too many restaurants who are on their knees and finances is bad, and people who work at the restaurant have bad salaries, and it's all just like bad business. And of course, I understand that food has to cost the right amount because someone makes food. It shouldn't be cheap, but sometimes, I feel like that is one of the reasons that you go to a restaurant and you feel a bit like, meh. And I ate, but I didn't get full, right? Not physically, but I didn't get satisfaction.
I would like to connect a phrase of Alain Ducasse and something I saw on a short documentary about Romagna. Alain Ducasse said that cooking is a love story, and you have to fall in love with the products and then with the people who cook them.
Yes.
But in this documentary about Romagna, very short, maybe it was also a campaign, like some advertising, a comedian from Romagna called Paolo Cevoli said something that I believe it's the most honest thing. He said that we eat because we are happy.
Because we are happy.
Yes. In Italian he said, si mangia perché si è felici. And I would like to connect this to what you said. Probably people aren't happy to cook. And then it's like it's the idea of convivio. It's like it's the attitude when you are at the table that you are happy to go there. But if you don't have this energy inside, food becomes like just something, a routine.
A chore.
You don't cook with love. There is I many years ago I read that preparing food is a metaphor of feelings. It's like you take care of your family, you take care of the people you love, they can be friends or and Probably, I don't know if it's too hard judgment about the society, but if you don't do it with love, in fact, Italian food, it's a lot of home food.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like grandma's.
And there's pride and there's happiness.
I think
Because it's
passion.
sorry, but there's to become a chef, to work or open a restaurant. People don't do it because it's a good business. That's not, that's. I think that if you go into a food business, if you do it to make money, only if that's your main goal, then you shouldn't. You should just do something else, honestly. And I know that this will upset many people, but I was talking to, I had the opportunity to do a lecture for, in Vapore, there's occupational university, applied science university where they train head chefs, like the leaders of a kitchen. And it was the lecture was about what is the chef's role in building a sustainable food system. And we talked a lot about this, that chefs, they complain, and it's like this and that, and there's no time, there's no money, and blah, blah, blah. And there was one guy who was, and then they all agreed, they were 20 people. He said, but then that person shouldn't be in this work. And something in it, for me, it's true. And because that's about the love. And he said to me, I have not chosen this career because of money, because of power, because of celebrity, stardom. I have chosen this because I love food and I love feeding people. And then everything else is kind of minor. Of course, having said that, of course, it's very important that all chefs and cooks today fight for a good pay and good working conditions. Those are things that should be
there. Yeah.
Right. I'm not saying that. But there's too many people who become a chef and open a restaurant for wrong reasons. Because if you don't have the will to feed people and make them happy with love, then it won't succeed. It might be a good business, but people will leave feeling not full.
Yeah.
I ate, but
I think there is a huge misunderstanding when we talk about chef. Started with TV shows like MasterChef.
Yes.
Like they think, like MasterChef made people think that being a chef is a very cool job.
Yes.
And you're gonna. They like the TV show just show this side.
Yeah. This flashy side.
Yes.
Yeah.
And basically, you are a servant.
Yeah.
The chef is a servant.
Yeah.
And when you see it from this point of view, then it's a little bit less cool. But if you like to serve people and you see love, just is different stuff.
I saw
it's
this.
Not romantic, really.
No, I saw this really cheesy Netflix series. My dad, who lives in Austria and he's retired, he said to me, "Edith, you have to watch this series. It's called From Scratch."